Okay. We can start at 3 minutes past 9, maybe.
That should be fine, Doctor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, colleagues. My name is Clement, and I will be chairing this session this morning. And we have all received the communication as to how we will be going in terms of time. So each presentation will take 15 minutes, and we will reserve the QA session for the end. And if people have questions, please type them in the QA chat box. It's written QA down there so that if the presenters maybe have answers to the questions, they can actually answer them as the presentations are going on. So without much ado, let me introduce the first speaker. The first speaker is, I struggle with this name, Dr. Caroline Panden.
Caro, Clement, it's easier.
Yeah, so she is a senior lecturer. I think she is still a senior lecturer in the Department of Information Systems. And her research includes digital social inclusion. And today she will be speaking on advancing sustainable smart innovations through transdisciplinary learning intervention, insights from the Quintuple Helix model. So, and this addresses the SDG goals 4, 11, and 17. So over to you, Carol.
Thanks. Let me just share. Morning, colleagues. Thank you for joining us. This is what I'm presenting as part of a project that I've been working on for over the last 3 years. And it's kind of evolved over time. So we have moved from an interdisciplinary working just with student groups from 2 different universities to more a transdisciplinary approach, where we're now working with community members, with local government, and also some partners from industry. And that's where the Quintuple Helix comes in. So it's just some insights from what we have learned over the last 3 years. So really the project, the background is that we're working with a lot of pressing urban socio-eco-environmental challenges, and our focus is on marginalized communities. And over the last years, we're working in the community of Dunoon in Cape Town. You can see there's some images of the community. Some of you may be familiar with the area. And what we do is we bring it in the context of educational sustainable development, more specifically higher education for sustainable development. So how do we bring in the principles of sustainable development in terms of our learning environment? And how do we start as universities playing that very important role to start fostering relationships with other parties? So kind of opening up the scene in terms of the sustainability problem. So we really just looking at how we can do this in terms of a learning intervention. This was more in terms of a learning intervention, student intervention, to look at digital social innovations, or what we're starting to call sustainable smart, that deals with real world challenges faced in these communities. So there's a number of these challenges that we address every year, and we're working with the community to try and find out what are the challenging areas in these communities, and then we participate with the community, and then we bring in student groups from 2 universities, from UWC, my students in information systems, and then from CPUT, working with students that are actually in urban and regional planning. So it's really this interdisciplinary looking at, they have a real deep knowledge in terms of sustainability, environmental challenges, where my students may not be so close to that, but my students bring in the technology, saying, how can we use digital social innovations to kind of deal with these challenges? So the key concepts that kind of underpins this whole project is, as I said, education for sustainable development. And then we're working very much with the idea of local lived knowledge, the importance of the local knowledge, the indigenous knowledge, and then how do we bring in digital social innovations to deal with this, working with the SDGs, obviously, within very much the collaborative partnerships within this quintuple helix model that we apply. And then we also draw on the concept of Society 5.0 to say, really, where are we moving in terms of this human-centered technology environment, where it is kind of transcending a technology approach to say, how do we bring in the human and kind of transcending how we do this? So Dunoon is a township in Cape Town. It's very much over, you can see there, just from, some of you will be familiar, the Cape Townians will be familiar, but it was originally designed for about 13,000 families, and it has just grown, and with COVID, it has just really amplified the problems in this community. There's an extremely high unemployment rate. It's really a community where people come in, it's always in transition. People come in from other areas, live in Dunoon, so there is multiple problems, and we have then started working with some of the local champions in Dunoon to kind of look at this. So what we do is we work with the students, we follow design thinking, and we go through the different phases of design thinking, kind of work with our partners in the area to really understand the problems, and then to try and find solutions for that. So this is just so I'm just going to show you just a couple of, there's so much to show, examples. So we first of all, really within the design thinking, you will try and understand your personas, who the people are that we're working with. This is just some of the examples from the students, from one of the groups. So really understanding the problems from the user's perspective, which is very important. So this whole user-centered design to understand what the areas are, and each group kind of look at a certain problem area. So this year we had 8 groups, and the different areas will deal from problems in the informal economy, unemployment, health-related, water and sanitation, food security, etc. So we kind of draw on different problems in the area, and then the groups need to really get a deep understanding of what that is, and come up with solutions. And they do that through the whole design thinking process, where there's some ideation. All the groups work together to come up with ideas, and these ideas then get funneled. When you use design thinking, you kind of come up with a whole lot of different ideas, and that is then funneled using something like a decision matrix, and then there's certain, they usually come up with 4 ideas that they will say this is feasible, and then we prototype that. For example, I'm just going to show you a couple of examples. The one group was dealing with the area of food security. So really, what is happening in terms of that lack of fresh, healthy food? So they came up with 2 ideas. The one is called the Crop Tech. It's an app that kind of shows the community how you can grow your own crops, start your own business. And it's really the idea in terms of how do we make the community self-sufficient? How do we give the community the necessary tools to kind of help them with the unique problems that they have in that area? The other one idea was called the enabling norms, which just helps putting local food producers, food banks, and other food relief establishments in contact. So there's certain things that they need to work with. It's important, the accessibility, connectivity, the usability of the solutions. So how it's being built and the specs around them. These are just some pictures. So this, you can just see what they kind of look like. Some settings. I'm just going to go through this fairly quickly. I think, Clement, you must just let me know how my time is going. So you can see here kind of examples. These are the different crops. This is how you grow them. So kind of just a whole lot of different things that the students kind of include in their solutions to kind of help this community. So this was the one. This is the other one where it's kind of putting people in contact with in the area in terms of their food. So really, what it's about is to say, what are the learnings? What are we learning from this highly complex environment where you're kind of trying to work with all these different stakeholders within this quadruple helix model? And the stakeholders that you work with is firstly your civil society, and then that's extremely important to work with your community from the start. We in the past years we kind of struggled with this during COVID because we couldn't really get into the community that much. But now it's kind of working from the start to kind of try and identify what the problems are that we should address. And really tapping into that importance of local knowledge. So the locals know the problems, they understand what it entails, and then working with them to come up with these solutions, and then testing through the design thinking, testing and refining the solutions. In terms of the academic, that's just saying it's at this stage, there's two groups that we're working with. It's UWC and CPUT and the students from the different areas and the academics. We're in the process now to try and roll this out to get some more international partnerships going, and obviously making it more complex because it's already complicated to kind of to work with the stakeholders from different universities and different student groups, but we always say we embrace complexity with this project. Bring it on. We're now getting international partners in. We're working with local government in terms of we have representatives from local government. We also very much we it's part of the urban planning unit. So we draw on the policies and data, and obviously it's very important to try and manage this when you're working with local government, the fine balance between government and the community. So we kind of the in between, we kind of seen as we go in and we're not part of government. That's incredibly important. You need to manage that very carefully. In terms of industry, we still kind of working on that industry.
3 minutes. 3 minutes to go. 3.
Thanks, Clement. Industry industry does not see the potential yet in terms of, so we have industry on advisory board and so forth, but industry is still, the informal economy is still something that is, the potential there is untapped, and I do a lot of other research in that area. And then obviously the most important is natural environmental, the natural environment leads, which we are really advocating for this whole, the importance of higher education and sustainable development, to try and bring in the sustainability concepts within all courses, the way that we work at the university. So environmental and social and governance. So really the importance of the natural environment and what we do. And then just to kind of quickly show you some, this is just some findings from students we presented at the City of Cape Town. Had a whole week in terms of what they're doing within the different communities, and the students then participated in that, and it really, for them, it was really a very impactful, I think, 5 months that they worked in this, to kind of see how they can contribute to something bigger, as one of the students said, something bigger than ourselves. And kind of the next steps is the importance of amplifying this education and sustainable development in our universities, in our teaching, learning, policy, practice, and then the importance of your partners to work with you from the start to define the problems. In the past, we would sometimes come up with problems, but now we're starting to include the partners, and it makes a big difference when you really work with them from the start to co-create solutions. We kind of now in the process where, yes, we have prototypes, great. What now? So we kind of now in the process to see how we take this further, and also to kind of form more partnerships with more NGOs in the area, and then also other academics, and potentially some more industry participants. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. It was very inspiring to see the work that you do in the community. And I don't know where you find time to really go in those places, because we are already having a lot of work on campus. So thanks a lot. And colleagues, if you have questions, put them in the chat. We'll get to them at the end of the session. So the next presenter is Sydney Mutelo. I think Sydney Mutelo is the next presenter. And he will be speaking on unmasking the significance of artificial intelligence in curricular and pedagogical practices of higher education institutions in the era of the fourth industrial revolution. And this is in line with SDG number 4. So over to you, Sydney.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for the handover. How much time do I have again?
15 minutes. So
15
when
minutes.
when we reach 10 minutes, I'll let you know that you're remaining with 5 minutes.
All right. Thank you so much. As Doctor has said, Prof, my name is Sydney Mutelo. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of the Western Cape, my second home. I'm speaking from Namibia, and good morning to you all. My supervisor and I embarked on a study to unpack the significance of artificial intelligence in higher education institutions in Namibia in the era of the fourth industrial revolution. So in this slides, few slides, we'll touch on the introduction, the aims, the research questions, the significance, as well as the literature review, research design and methodology approach, population and sampling, data collection and ethical considerations, measures to ensure trustworthiness, as well as data collection, discussion of findings, and then we'll we'll conclude by the conclusion and the recommendation. Just to dive in, I think a good takeaway from COVID was that, and I think it's where the previous speaker spoke about it, where she said the institutions really learned a lot from the coronavirus, and the Namibian institutions were also not left out. So it came to transparent that indeed AI is really needed into the institutions, and they faced various challenges. So the primary objective of this study is that we'll unpack the current state of AI integration in higher education institutions, to also investigate impact of pedagogy and teaching approaches, as well as identifying challenges and opportunities. We also assessing the perception of educators and students, as well as proposing evidence-based recommendations in this journal. AI influence in higher education institution extend both to curricular practices as well as pedagogy. It offers the potential for personalized learning, adaptive assessment, as well as intelligent tutoring system. As the UNESCO states that in 2019, that understanding and addressing these challenges and opportunities are crucial in order for us to have a successful implementation of the artificial intelligence in higher education institutions. So the aims was to establish the role of integrating AI in the integration of artificial intelligence in the curricular practices of higher education institutions, examine the influence of AI on pedagogical methodologies and teaching approaches in higher education institutions, as well as to identify challenges and opportunities, as I mentioned, examine the perception and attitude of educators, students towards AI in higher education, as well as to proffer evidence-based suggestion. This I will emphasize evidence-based suggestions because most of the time we tend to focus only on academics, and then we leave out students. And then in this study, we focused on both the academics, the administrative, as well as students to find the evidence-based recommendations that will be presented earlier at a further note. So the research questions, they were integrated from the objectives. As you can see, the third one, what are the key challenges and opportunities faced by higher education institutions in the adoption of and implementation of AI technologies in their curricular and pedagogical practices. I think I'm just trying to catch up with time. I have a lot of slides. I hope you bear with me. So the thing is that all these research questions, they were derived from the objectives, since we have already touched the objectives. Then we go to the significance. This study has the potential to add great value in higher education institutions. Among others, the potential of AI integration in higher education institution, the theoretical implication. In order for us to have a greater understanding of the current state of AI integration, as it provides a theoretical foundation of effective AI utilization. Practical contributions are among the significance of this study. As I said, it's evidence-based, as well as policy implications. It is essential for institutions and policymakers to align educational systems with the fourth industrial revolution and enhance education quality in technological advanced world. This study is underpinned by two philosophers, The first one is the Anderson theory, as well as the Perensky theory of emerging technology and the one of digital natives. Among others, I quoted Ferrand 2017, who says that content that technology acts as a driving force behind societal change, fundamentally altering how people live, work, and communicate to effectively harness the potential benefit of AI in the domain announced understanding of the intricate relationship between human and technology. And that also is mentioned by one of the philosophical underpinnings in the theoretical framework, Perensky. All right, and then this study was a qualitative study. I used the Google form. My supervisor and I, we used the Google form in order to generate data from the 120 participants that took part in the study. We on the next slides. Sorry. Yes, thank you. It's an interpretivist paradigm study. This study adopts the interpretivist paradigm, emphasizing the interpretation of actions and context specific knowledge generation with a flexible approach, drawing from both qualitative. Sorry, there's an error there. Yeah, so it enhanced AI in higher education institution. This approach makes research on AI in higher education institutions more adaptable and relevant, and promoting the practical application of knowledge in this field. As I mentioned earlier, that this study had a population of a sample of over 120 participants from various institutions in Namibia of higher learning. Due to the sake of, I see the session is being recorded, I won't mention the institutions. It focused or it comprised of academics, the students, as well as the administrator. So yes, I used the unstructured kind of Google form, although it's under scrutiny. It's unstructured interview. So we sent out to the Google form survey, where it has closed-ended questions and as well as open-ended questions. Next slide, please. Yes, and yeah. So this allowed an in-depth exploration of experiences and ensure participants express themselves freely without a limited space or time frame, because they did it on their own pace. An integral part of research is ethical consideration, which is the next slide. I adhered to the research ethics by obtaining permission and communicating the rights of the participants, such as informed consent, anonymity, minimizing harm, willingness to withdraw from the study, and so forth. The moral dedication beyond requirements. The study in AI integration in education reflects a strong commitment to the highest ethical standard, and acknowledging the value of participants, its contribution, and their protection. So to ensure validity and reliability, so that the results may be considered credible, dependable, transferable, and confirmability, as mentioned by Nevensen 2016. We We ensured that there's a pilot study, member checks, triangulation of results, verifying raw data, keeping notes on research decisions taken, avoidance of generalization. As I said, it's some institutions, there are quite a lot, but we just focused on some, and using verbatic direct quotations from the participants. And yes, what emerged from the study is that, interesting enough, on the next slide, interesting enough is that the participants, the participant has a great understanding of what AI entails, and although some varied that AI is here to take over their jobs and all that, but it emerged that as stated on the insert there, those are some of the technologies that are commonly used in higher institutions of learning in Namibia. I'm sure there are some that are not there. Yes. So in conclusion, prioritizing evidence-based decision-making over ideology for AI integration in Namibian, in higher education institution in Namibia is key. Focusing on nurturing pre-service teachers, technological literacy due to its impact on their ability to integrate AI and technology in teaching, address policy deficiencies, that overlook humanistic and social dimension impacting pre-service teacher support, advocating for a holistic paradigm shift, involving policymakers, administrators, as well as academics. This will help enhance technological literacy in education. So the recommendations. The recommendations that were adopted in this study are a comprehensive training program need to be developed in the institutions in order to capacitate the students being produced by these universities, because at the moment what is there is not really meeting the 21st century need. Interdisciplinary collaboration, that is self-explanatory. On the next slide, please. Thank you. Right. Interdisciplinary collaboration, promote cooperation among tech experts, educators, stakeholders for innovation, for innovative AI integration, research-informed policies, inclusive educational practices to prioritize equitable access and stakeholder engagement in AI-enhanced education. We further recommended that a further study be embarked on systematic evaluation of training programs by assessing training programs' effectiveness to continually improve AI integration. And those are some of the references that we touched on. And yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sydney. It's interesting that you are doing your research on Namibian institutions, but you did not explain the details on the names of the institutions where you did your research and the sampling process. So maybe you can address these issues when it comes to the Q&A session.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the next presenter is Miss Dominique Bowers from the Faculty of EMS, and she will be speaking on a bibliometric study of disruptive theory and supply chain management research, South African perspective. And this is addressing SDG goals number 9 and number 17. So over to you, Dominic. You have 15 minutes. When it reaches 10 minutes, if I see that you look like you are still very far from finishing, I'll give you a notice. I will notify you. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Jim. Just give me one moment. I'm hoping everybody can see my slides.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you for having me. This was of 4 people within our group. That's myself, Ms. Bowers, Saleh, Henry, and Tabo. I'm hoping that they have joined. Our research topic is a bibliometric study of disruptive theory and supply chain management research with a South African perspective. So our presentation layout, I will be doing the presentation, but the layout is as follows: an introduction with background and going through the problem statement, the purpose, the linkages, literature, as well as ending off with our findings and recommendation. Okay, for introduction, the study explores the impact of disruptive technology on supply chain management, and it focuses on emerging economies like South Africa. Exploring disruptive innovation hypothesis as influenced by Clayton Christian's framework, which was coined in 1997, and it aimed to understand the management of and the influence of new technologies within innovations in supply chain management. With South Africa's advanced economy and internet access, we could embrace it and basically run with it. So our problem statement speaks to how supply chain management is undergoing significant transformations due to its various disruptive factors, some being technological advancements like AI, global events like COVID-19, and consumer behaviors, the Generation Z and Y. In South Africa, there are many regions, and because of the current supply chain landscape evolving, we could potentially adapt. However, there is a need for comprehensive analysis of the current existing body of knowledge, which I'll speak to further in our literature review. There is a big gap at the moment, specifically localized application of disruptive theory within communities, its effects on our current community, and understanding how the disruptive theory can drive eco-friendly practices or sustainable sourcing within the supply chain of South Africa. Another research gap identified from the literature is integration of technology and innovation. In South Africa, we've got small, medium enterprises as well as big businesses, and sometimes it's very challenging, or there could be possible opportunities to adopt and benefit from disruptive technologies or innovations, potentially leading to inclusive growth and development. And saying that, it's linked to the 2 SDGs 9 and 17, which currently focuses on fostering innovation and technological advancements, as well as potential cross-sectoral partnerships within the various industries. The literature has different schools of thought. I'll be focusing on a few of them only because there was about 67 articles that we've done in our bibliometric analysis. So in the literature review, there's an underscoring of strategic significance for startups in strengthening supply chain ecosystems. And it highlights the potential of blockchain for enhancing security, traceability, as well as transparency. So that these could potentially, these disruptive innovations or technologies could potentially reduce waste, improve the infrastructure, and perhaps optimize resource management and planning. It could also counterfeit from the different schools, excuse me, the different schools of thought. It could alleviate or possibly deter counterfeiting with products within supply chain, as well as have this ability to trace and authenticate products. So disruptive technologies like blockchain, 3D printing, AI, and like cloud computing, all falls under with basically Internet of Things. It offers avenues of enhancing the the current economy, and it can affect different industries. My theoretical framework specifically in triple helix model, so it will then look at academia, look at government, and it look at different industries like agriculture and petroleum. So it can affect, according to the literature, the effects is predominantly in the publications for about 10 years. Then looking at the theoretical framework, as I've mentioned, the helix model was developed in 1995 by Edkowitz and Ledensdorf in using the ability to analyze and collaborate patterns, knowledge flows, and innovation within disruptive theory. Then looking at the sustainable development goals. Using that framework, organizations in South Africa can attain sustainable growth and accountability within their resource consumption, fostering responsible and efficient innovation and processes within the industry. Now, the research methods and data collection, because it's a bibliometric analysis, we're looking at quantitative as well as qualitative data. And the bibliometric analysis just gave us a step-by-step way, a systematical and analytical way to read and interpret what it is we've received. So our data collection, we use the UWC portal, going onto our Scopus database, using keywords like disruptive theory, supply chain management. And funny enough, if you add in the word South Africa or the South African context, you'll get no articles. So we looked at articles between the years of 2013 and then also went back to 2003 because there wasn't many. And then we looked at peer-reviewed journals, specifically in English, with the subject area of business and management, which garnered us about 67 publications in different subsections. So that CSV file we downloaded and then put it through our Vospio bibliometric tool, which analyzed the different publications and the articles and the keywords. So looking at our findings and interpretation, if you're looking at figures 1 and 2, there's a trend of publications over the years. It highlights significant increase in the publications for 2022. There were about 20%, 21%, which is about 14 articles out of the 76, where there was a surge in the research within disruptive technology, disruptive innovation, and disrupt and research. So then looking at figure 2, you could see that there is a noteworthy finding. About 48 of those publications identified as articles, not conference papers, not reviews, but actual articles. And that is about a 71% of the research within disruptive theory in supply chain management. Again, noting not in South Africa. So there's a diverse range of publication outlets chosen by the researchers in the field. So in summary, there's critical observations. There's insights from the figures outlining significance of data and trends, and it's well presented in the visual presentations that we drew from Scopus. Then looking at the figures 3 and 4, out of the 67 publications, 4,500 of those were citations. And out of that 4,530 citations, there was about 75 authors that was mentioning all of the words required within our keywords in abstracts as well as in their titles. But remember, this is just the citations, not the actual articles. And in those citations, it is very clear that South Africa only amounted to about 20 linkages. And out of those, the biggest countries that were drawing data or research within disruptive innovation or technologies was the United States of America as well as Chile. So it does show us that South Africa is requiring more research into that that topic. It is something that we could contextualize and fill in the gaps that we currently have in the making our disruptive, using disruptive technology and localizing it for us. In our recommendations, the paper presented comprehensive overviews of research and disruptive theory. So, and there were many publication trends with words in research, garnering about 87 mentioned 87 times, disruptive innovations and theories being mentioned over 167 times within the 4,500 citations. So there are there are definitely publication trends, academic affiliations, and research connections that we could make with other countries and other universities to grow the prominence of disruptive theory and supply chain regions within the South African context. So our recommendations are that policymakers within South Africa needs to adapt regulations and policies, and those adaptations needs to happen within the triple helix model, with looking at academia, looking at industry, and looking at government. The skills development in human capital can be developed in the small, medium enterprises as well as in the big business, so that supply chain professionals and the supply chain memory can stay relevant and harness for full potential of disruptive theories. We also need to understand and adapt to future trends. So South Africa is in dire need of critical curriculum changes within the higher education context, because the industries that are mainly affected is, for us in higher education, it's largely problematic when we were busy going through COVID-19. So if we can introduce disruptive technologies in the different, at higher education level in the different faculties, we could mitigate any potential problems that may occur. Yeah, next is all the acknowledgement. We had a few, and yes, thank you. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Dominic. We will reserve the questions for the at the end of the session. So I would like to ask all presenters to remain until the end of this session, because that's when we'll look at the questions. But on my part, I like your topic. I would want to see your paper, because I think those disruptive technologies is the area where we do our work. So
Yes.
I would like to see your work thereafter, after
Thank you
the
so much.
session. Yeah. So
Thank you very much.
going forward, the next presenter is Professor Jennifer Chips. I think I've pronounced it correctly. She's a professor in the Faculty of Community Health Sciences, I think in the School of Nursing. And she'll be speaking about grassroots uptake of smartphones in education. So I was a bit confused, because I thought this is maybe from the Faculty of Education. So, but maybe we'll hear more from her as she speaks. So over to you, Prof. Chips.
Thank you. Just share my screen. Thank you very much. So my topic for today is grassroots uptake of smartphones for nursing education. So it is actually in education, but specifically what we did investigate was actually the look of the use of smartphones in nursing education in Africa, and specifically in Nigeria. Now, just in terms of background, I mean, the ownership and use of smartphones across the world have increased exponentially. I mean, we're all aware of that. I mean, the figures were saying that by 2023, which is now, that about 70% of people would own a smartphone. And I think probably the figures are much higher than that now as well. Now, one of the issues of digital health and smartphones is that obviously this has been identified by the WHO as a key enabler of the SDGs. And, you know, it is just one component. It has been used, smartphones have been used in health as well, but also specifically in education. So one of the things is that what we have been noticing is that students obviously are a product of our digital age. And we know that the use of smartphones for learning has become very popular, not only for nursing students, but for students in general. And this was even before COVID-19, although COVID-19 obviously has made major changes regarding the uptake of technology in general. But there was a global survey in 2017 which indicated that 94% of students want to use their cell phones in class. So the issue that we were looking at is that there's evidence emerging on this effectiveness of smartphones and the use for learning. There's been reports saying it has increased students' attention span, it has stimulated students' interest in studying, it facilitates and improves efficiency in learning. A whole lot of reports have been emerging, and there's a lot more than what I've just quoted here. But, as educationists, we have to ask, how acceptable are these smartphones for learning in education? And then are educators actually using smartphones for learning? And in fact, we've done some work around this, which is not the purpose of my presentation today, but we've found that the evidence is contrary, that in fact, there's a very low usage of educators using it to plan for educational purposes. And then if we are thinking about using smartphones as one of the technologies in education, is it underpinned by sound digital pedagogy? So what we did was, and this is part of a PhD project, and the PhD student Isaac is presenting later this afternoon. We did a study to assess the use of smartphones for learning in nursing education in Nigeria. Now it's part of a much bigger project, and so this is part of the situation analysis. The aim of the overall project is to develop pedagogical, ethical, technical, and administrative guidelines for the use of technology in education, and specifically in low resource settings, because the issues are not the same in low and middle income countries as it is internationally. So the setting for the study was 2 nursing colleges and 3 universities in southwest Nigeria. Now, these are accredited nursing education institutions accredited by the Nursing and Midwifery Council of Nigeria to train nursing students. So we did a descriptive cross-sectional survey of these students in the setting. And the survey was much broader than what I'm presenting, but I'm just presenting a component of it. So across these 5 settings, there were 1,388 students, and we calculated a sample of 462 to be representative of these students. The tool we used was a modified tool based on the technology acceptance model. Now, I know there are a lot of other models are used for looking at the use and acceptance of technology, but we used this model, which was previously used in the setting as well. And within this framework, we looked specifically at educational use of the smartphones. So are students actually using it not for their own personal use only, but for education? How easy was it to use? How useful did the students find it? What were their attitudes towards the use of smartphones in learning? And what challenges they were experiencing? So it was conducted in Nigeria by Isaac, who will be presenting later in 2022, after we've had ethics and data was collection over a 6-week period. All the data were then captured in SPSS, and then using the framework, the TAM framework, we then actually calculated all the constructs and had a look at the issues. So looking at the findings, I mean, we had a very good response rate. We had 97.6% of the respondents responded. The students are undergraduate students, so they're young, an average of 21 years. And as with nursing students, most of these were female, so 86% of the respondents were female. The first question we asked was how many people have smartphones, and in fact, it's much higher than the 70%. We have reports of 94% of them having reported specifically owning smartphones. Then obviously smartphone usage is affected by internet access. So we asked questions about, do you have internet access to use your smartphone? And 72% of them had internet access at home, and 55% of them, 656, reported internet access at school. Now, because we had students from both universities and nursing colleges, we did find that the university internet access was significantly higher than the colleges. So we asked what are you using it currently for education? And 94.9% students rated their smartphones as very important for their learning. And 81% of them reported that they use their smartphones daily for educational purposes for between 2 and 8 hours. So there's really quite a high usage of these phones. We asked a number of questions, but one of the interesting statements that they made is that I won't be able to cope with my smartphone, with nearly 75% of them agreeing with that statement. We also asked them, what do you use for educational purposes? And obviously WhatsApp, which is similar to South Africa, which is very popular to be used. Facebook, interestingly enough, I thought that the use of Facebook had dropped, but this was still very high. But and email, obviously, which everybody uses well. But what of concern was for me, and noted there, was that word processing in Excel was also used for educational purposes on their mobile phones, and very high numbers of 90%. So then we looked at the acceptance of the smartphones for education. So looking at easy to use, and we rated them out of 4. And so we found that students actually, it was quite a high score for ease of use, but more for usefulness. But for ease of use in specific issues, students respondents were reporting that the interfaces were very user-friendly and very flexible to use. Specifically, they found it very easy to read, to retrieve course materials, and I think that this is probably common in our South African students as well. Easy to read, and lower ratings for no technical issues. So about 40% of students did have some technical issues in using the smartphone. When asked whether it was useful for educational purposes, the score was much higher, with a mean score of 3.38 out of 4. And there is a whole range of academic activities mentioned, and most of these academic activities, the score was above 90%. So it's for using meeting applications, social media for communication, the learning management systems on their phone, a whole range of them, very high usage. Although when we got to the attitudes section, that was quite a bit more mixed. They did believe, 94%, which is very high, that it was important for learning, and that the use of the mobile apps for learning and assignments were very useful, with agreement levels between 80 and 92%. When we were asking about whether the faculty are providing engaging and interactive teaching material for the smartphone, this drops down to about 64%, which I think was also an interesting point. But in asking about whether they prefer online learning, about 78% of them still preferred face-to-face lessons with classmates, and 83% of them reported that, having a phone is distracting. There were obviously challenges, and that's why it was important for us to look at it in the South African and the Nigerian context. Obviously, internet connections was a challenge, with nearly 70% reporting signal strength issues as an inconsistency in this, affecting their use of their mobile phones. Expensive, obviously, with 88.7% reporting increases in data expenditure because they are using it for learning. And over a third of them reported that they are reliant on their personal data for this use, not the internet as provided. Then asking specifically about, do they have issues with their devices? So there were quite high reports of their phones freezing, 85%. And nearly 2/3 of them were saying that the format of the content was not suitable for mobile phones. And I think this is a big issue for us to consider, because I'm not sure that we are designing material and content for mobile phone ease of viewing. And then obviously there were some screen and key size challenges that was reported, with about half of them reporting that. Then we did ask additional questions about distraction and addiction, and Desire is going to present a paper on the addiction findings later today. But 94% of them did report that there was intruding phone calls while learning using their smartphone, spending more time on their phone than intended, 75%, having distractions and interest of multitasking and task switching when their phone was available as well, 71%, and about 2/3 of them were constantly checking social media. And I think some of us can identify some of these issues as well. What was interesting to me, because this was a very young group, to average age of 21, was that nearly over half of them were presenting, reporting pain in in their wrists and in their necks due to the use of the phone. So when I was reflecting on all of this together with my team members, Prof. Daniels and Isaiah, I think what came when we were asking the question, how acceptable are smartphones for nursing education? I think the reality is that there's a grassroots uptake of that. And so whether we, can argue about whether it is acceptable, we have to accept that unintentionally there has been this grassroots uptake of the use of smartphones. And therefore there's a need to formally integrate this smartphones for learning. And so we need to address, I think, which is very common in issues with digital health, issues of equity with costly access to data and internet. And we know this as well from the impact of COVID in our university. I think both learners and faculty needs additional support for educational digital literacy. We often assume that our students are extremely digital literate, and that is not always the case. But in previous studies that we have done, we have found very low digital literacy among faculty. And then there's a need for guidelines for the use of smartphones for learning. And for us specifically in nursing, there's a need for looking at guidelines for in clinical settings, because a lot of the hospitals does not allow the use of mobile phones. So I think in conclusion, I think there's a need for us to differentiate between the use of mobile learning in the blended context, of which there are numerous papers. I mean, and I think you can just, if you do any search on the internet, there are numerous papers on the use of digital education technology in the blended context, and the use of smartphones in the blended context. But I think it's different from what we are observing happening in Nigeria. And I've spoken to the student about his experience as well, because I asked him, do the students have laptops? Do they use them? And he said, yes, there are laptops, but it's used for other purposes. He felt that there was a validation of the findings from personal experience as well. Because what we are observing from the study, that there is actually this unintended grassroots uptake and use of mobile devices for learning. So if this is happening, I think as educators, we really have to recognize it as an essential part of learning, and beyond just using clickers to test interactivity. And we need to actually design content that is appropriate for mobile phones. You know yourself that not everything that you get on your mobile phone is readable on a mobile phone. And then I think, which is the purpose of our big study, I think there's really a need to develop digital pedagogy. And so with that, which is the aim of our project largely, to develop guidelines. And these guidelines should focus on educational guidelines for the use of technology, technological guidelines, administrative and ethical guidelines for the integration of smartphones for learning in the classroom and the clinical setting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Chips. I think you just stuck to the time like perfectly. And I liked your presentation, very insightful. I think as you were presenting, I see that the mobile phone is really good for education, but I think it is also a huge distraction. So I look forward to further research on that, on how we can reduce the distractions and preserve the good. So I would like to encourage you, I would like to ask you to remain until the end, because I think many people will have some questions concerning your work in the Q&A session. Thank you very much. So the next presenter is Miss Shulufelo Mangadi. I think she's a student from the Faculty of EMS, maybe the Department of Information Systems, and she'll be speaking on factors influencing the acceptance and use of a South African data-free job search application, and this is in line with SDG number 8. So over to you, Shulufelo.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Cool. Just want to double check if everyone can see the screen.
Yes, I can see. We put it in slideshow.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to this presentation done by myself as well as my supervisor, which delves into the factors influencing the acceptance and use of a South African job search application. So the global transition towards digitalization has revolutionized various aspects of daily life, including job searching. In South Africa, where unemployment rates are high and prevalent, it's crucial to recognize the significance of leveraging data platforms in addressing the pressing need for employment opportunities. And this research paper explores a critical aspect of addressing unemployment and the digital divide in South Africa. And in this area marked by the digital transformation of job searching, understanding the factors that affect the adoption of digital job search tools is paramount. So this study aims to shed light on these determinants, their implications, and the potential they hold in promoting employment opportunities in South Africa. So by examining these determinants, we aim to provide valuable insights into enhancing accessibility to job opportunities for a broader demographic, particularly those facing barriers related to connectivity and affordability. And this study aligns with broader efforts to address unemployment challenges and bridging the digital divide in South Africa. So the background, the digital divide is characterized by disparities in internet access and digital skills. And these pose a significant challenge for job seekers in South Africa. While the potential of digital job search platforms is immense, a substantial portion of the population lacks the necessary connectivity and resources to fully benefit from them, as well as the cost of data further worsens this divide, limiting access to crucial job listings and career resources. Moreover, the youth demographic faces excessively high unemployment rates at 62.1% at the first quarter of this year. And this group often grapples with issues of connectivity and digital access. So addressing these challenges is essential to ensure equitable access to essential job opportunities and promote socioeconomic equality within the country. This research is linked with the SDG goals, which is a set of global objectives adopted by the United Nations to promote sustainable development across economic, social, and environmental dimensions. This study primarily focuses and aligns with SDG 8, which is decent work and economic growth, which emphasizes the importance of fostering an inclusive economic growth and job creation. High unemployment is a pressing concern in South Africa, and the study aims to contribute to the achievement of SDG 8 by promoting the use of digital job search tools. Additionally, this work aligns with SDG 10, which is reduced inequalities, as it seeks to bridge the digital divide and ensure fair access to employment opportunities to all, regardless of their economic background. So by investigating data-free solution, this research contributes to fostering digital inclusion, which is a crucial element in achieving socio-economic equality in South Africa. And this also does align with the broader SDG framework, which also aims to promote sustainable economic development and social cohesiveness in the country. To go into the methods and methodologies used in the paper, so the first thing that we're going to be looking at is the research design. And the research is adopted for this qualitative study was an exploratory case study. So it entails a thorough investigation of a phenomenon with the primary objective of gaining a deeper understanding and exploring a deep understanding of its context, interactions, as well as their underlying factors. So in this case, the phenomenon that is investigated is the acceptance and the use of a data-free job search application, with a particular emphasis on the innovative platform known as JobX, which I'll be going into a little bit later in the presentation. And this exploratory study is based on the interpretivist paradigm as advocated by Saunders, Phillip, and Thornhill. And this philosophy embraces a subjective perspective, centering on individuals' experiences, beliefs, assumptions, as well as their interpretation. So this is particularly important as we are investigating user preferences and perceptions in order to understand factors. This philosophy also places great importance of grasping the specific content individuals interact with in technology. So by using this approach, the paper is able to explore contextual factors such as user interface, connectivity, as well as trust in technology in the context of a data-free job search application, and examines how these factors interact with users' beliefs as well as their experiences. The primary data source of this application was Google user reviews of a specific job search application called JobX. So therefore, the unit of analysis are individuals, and a total of 368 reviews were systematically collected from JobX as of April 2023. And these reviews allowed a wide range of perspectives on the benefits, the drawbacks, expectations, and challenges of using a South African data-free job search application. And the thematic analysis inspired by the works of Vaughan and Clark was also used to systematically identify, examine, and report patterns within the reviews. Coding as well as categorizing the data allowed us to uncover recurring themes and providing structured methods to organize as well as extract meaningful insights from the reviews. And then the unified theory of acceptance of technology, acceptance and use of technology, known as the UTAUT model, developed by Van Kentish, served as a theoretical framework guiding the analysis. As mentioned, the UTAUT is a prominent model used for understanding the factors that influence the adoption of technology. The UTAUT identifies 4 key constructs, which is effort expectancy, performance expectancy, social influence, and facilitating conditions, which are then applied to understand users' behavioral intention and the actual usage of the technology. And this framework was well suited for exploring the factors influencing the acceptance and use of a data-free application, as performance expectance assesses if users believe that this app aids in their job search goals as well as the success, whereas effort expectancy gauged if users found the application to be user-friendly as well as effortless. Social influence delved into the influence of peer opinions, while facilitating condition gauged if users believe necessary resources and support was available for them during the use of the application. So this framework, the UTAUT, offered a robust understanding of these factors and allowed us to have an holistic view of the factors as a whole. And to kind of go into the application that we looked into during the research, which is JobX, and this is an innovative job search application designed to be data-free, allowing job seekers to use the application without consuming their data analysis. This feature is particularly helpful for individuals who may have limited access to mobile data. So it was developed, and since its launch, it has amassed about 10,000 users within its first week and over 40,000 downloads since November 2020. And this application is like a holistic tools of job searching tools that can help users during their journeys in finding employment. So it includes features such as CV creation, document scanning, interview trips, as well as progress training. So essentially, it's designed to empower job seekers, especially youth aged 18 to 35. And JobX epitomizes accessibility, ensuring that users can leverage its full potential without incurring data costs. And so to go into the findings, since the investigation uncovered crucial insights using the UTAUT framework, a few key drivers of adoptions were revealed. Notably, performance expectancy emerged as a critical factor reflecting users' confidence in the application's effectiveness, whereas effort expectancy focused on ease of use as well as positive user experience. It helped play a pivotal role in reducing the perceived effort of this job searching tool. Facilitating conditions, particularly accessibility without data, proved instrumental in overcoming a major barrier to entry, while social influence, although compromised a small proportion of the reviews and analysis, it demonstrated its influence on users' perceptions and decisions regarding the application. So in essence, the positive performance expectancy as well as the effort expectancy together are crucial factors in users' decision to adopt this data-free job search application, while social influence through the positive endorsements, positive reviews, and recommendations can strongly influence users' adoption decisions, while facilitating conditions does play a significant role in ensuring that users can effectively use the application despite technical challenges. Now to go into recommendations. For data-free applications, the following steps would be needed to be done in order to ensure that it could be better and it could be used to improve access to employment. So the steps would involve addressing user dissatisfaction, improving app performance, and a consistent app performance, which we found are crucial and to fully leverage the potential of the application in improving the access to an employment. And then recommendations also emphasize using a user-centric approach. So this includes designing applications that focus on the ease of use, effortless accessibility, and creating a user-friendly environment that encourages continued engagement with the application. While tackling technical challenges as well as and other facilitating conditions can have a profound impact on making the application more valuable and accessible to a wider range of users, ultimately, improving this can lead to effectiveness in connecting users to job search opportunities. And lastly, leveraging influence can also ensure sustained adoption. So by fostering a larger user community and contributing to the credibility and trustworthiness of the application, in turn, significantly aids the success of data-free job search applications in improving individuals' access to employment opportunities. So in conclusion, this research advances the field of mobile application acceptance and the usage, offering specific insights into the South African market. So it lays the groundwork in developing more effective user-centric job search applications, which is particularly vital considering South Africa's pressing youth unemployment challenges. So localized content and services tailored to the specific needs of young job seekers are essential in addressing the nation's high unemployment rates. And by addressing critical issues of data accessibility in job searching and investigating a solution, the study makes substantial strides in bridging the divide in this context. So this approach represents a holistic view as well as a contribution to combating youth unemployment and the overall socioeconomic development of the nation. And so in closing, the provision of data-free solutions and applications stands a significant step towards promoting digital inclusion and socioeconomic equality in South Africa. So illustrating this transformative potential of technology in shaping more inclusive and a prosperous future for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. It will be interesting to find out as to how they're able to make this application data-free, and maybe you need to explain a bit more as to what is meant by data-free in the Q&A session. And also the issue of the users. I was actually curious to find out as to what are the actual numbers of the people that use this app right now, and how do they run it in terms of operational costs. So, but maybe you can answer these kind of questions in the Q&A session. We are running a bit late, so maybe we move off to the next presenter. So the next presenter and the final one for this session is Dr. Paul Dankers from the Center for Innovative Education and Communication Technologies. And he will be speaking on the challenges of digital theological pedagogy in religious practices and narratives. So this is addressing SDG number 9. So over to you, Dr. Dankers.
Good morning, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity to present this morning. This is a paper. Let me see what's that. It's stuck somewhere. Oh, go back. This is a paper I wrote for a presentation at a conference, at the theological conference last year, but I didn't have opportunity to present it, so I thought I'll do this today. The paper is meant to be conversational, so there's a lot of questions that the paper presents, so that will be the gist of the actual paper. I will start out introducing the paper and deal with 4 objectives in the paper. So the first objective will deal with the shift in practice in the theological spheres, and then the different aspects of digital theology and religion. That will be my second objective. The third objective will be a new lens for spirituality and the ethical probability in the digital age, and the challenge of AI in practice. This paper compares all the new methods of online teaching and particularly religious practices and theory in view of the fourth industrial revolution, the Internet of Things, and AI. So we will look at how these forces of technology change online teaching and learning, particularly in the humanities, and practices that take place in theological institutions. I will explore the benefits of, or new benefits of integrating the digital humanities and technology in support of online theological institutions. Excuse me. My research question is two-sided. So we'll look at how do we embrace expanded use of technology and the ethical challenges involved in that. In order to understand this paper, I had to make a distinction between digital religion and digital theology, which fall under the digital humanities. And it has been documented that teachers of religion and theology, they currently show scant interest in linking application of teaching and learning to computational tools. And that is by linking data, mapping, networking, analysis, text mining, visualizing information, and fueling digital scholarship. Most do not aspire to engage in methodologies that is related to the digital humanities. Now, here's my first objective. I'm going to go through the first and the second and the third objective quite rapidly. So, because I want to get to the fourth objective, which kind of was the whole purpose of this paper, is to look at the ethical side of using technology in a digital space of theology and religion studies. So first we ask the question, what is a digital religion? Fundamentally, digital religion research emerged around the following phenomena, which was documentation, analyzing, and theorizing. It later evolved into a term called cyber religion, and then later on the term further evolved into virtual religion. So there's always the question that gets asked when it comes to digital religion is how can we separate the online and offline spaces? You see, mostly online and offline spaces in religious practice are intertwined. The differentiation is made when online spaces are referred to digital religion studies, which predominantly take place through the internet platforms and technologies. So digital religion studies is basically a label that seeks to describe how religion is influenced or interpreted by a digital culture and the varied use of the internet. So let's get to my second objective, which will deal with the different aspects of digital theology. What is digital theology? Digital theology is commonly defined contextually, so that a distinction can be made between how technology affects online religion or religion online. In this paper, I concern myself with the latter, which will be religion online. That was the engagement in online religious practices that moves away from just having notice boards like notices for services and stuff like that, and move towards the chat interface where we get bulletin boards, or perhaps to move from digital passivity to digital interactive activity, from the web one to to 3, and particularly to the Internet of Things. Now, these practices that relate to this technological engagement with religion online, although there are different ways of digital religion, I focus on the critiques related to this evolving aspect of digitality in theology. The third objection, a new lens for spirituality and ethical probability in the digital age. Ethics and spirituality plays a very important role in the digital age when it comes to digital theology and digital religion. In this paper, I highlighted how teachers of religion and theology at higher education institutions must take part in the discourse on ethics and spirituality. Why? Because they can rethink common concepts like trust, society, communication, manipulation, human relationship, work, death, personal integrity, and privacy. There is the concern that the technologies of the digital age seek to deepen our culture's commitment to self-centeredness. So that is the first to third objective. So I'll spend a bit more time in the fourth objective, which I think is the most relevant topic, or probably AI is the most spoke of practice right now. So when it comes to theology and religion, there is the challenge of AI practice. So there we have this moral and ethical concerns. So basically the working perspective of AI operates from the following presupposition. AI is seen as a human artifact. So AI is human fabricated, and we have to realize that it will intersect with all avenues of teaching and so when it intersects, we have to ask the ethical questions. So concerns will be raised by religious leaders and religious studies. And since the inception of the threat of AI in social and human dignity, religious leaders have begun examining AI in the context of theological anthropology. In 2020, just when COVID hit, there was a Roman call for AI ethic in support of an ethical approach to AI by promoting a sense of accountability. What the call did, it proposed that we develop an ethical system around algorithms, and they termed it our algo ethics. It's a breach that enables principles that can help us to have dialogue in the cross-disciplinary way when it relates to digital technologies. In addition, it was expressed that AI technology should be developed for the good of humanity and for the environment and for our common and shared home and hope and of human inhabitants, because we are all inextricably connected in some way. Now, this was followed by another call, but let me just go back quickly. I think I missed something. Out of the first Rome call of ethics, there were 6 ethical principles that were tabulated. The first was transparency, inclusion when it comes to the foundation for the usage of AI, accountability, impartiality, reliability, and security and privacy. Now, these ethical principles encompass the needs of everyone, and they had to transcend biases. So after this call, the first call, there was a recent call this year in Rome. It was called an Abrahamic commitment to the Rome call. And so this is when the Vatican Pontifical Academy for Life and the Renaissance, however you pronounce it, with the foundation, they got together on the 10th of January, and they got together with IBM and Microsoft and different religious organizations. So there was the United Arab Emirates, Abu Dhabi Forum, the Peace of the Chief Rabbinate. So it was Jews, Muslims, and Christians, Catholic Christians, and some Protestants. So there were 4 delegates that addressed the ethical guides to and the conundrums and the design of AI, and by challenging the developers of AI. So this was a challenge to the developers of AI technology. that they need to endow AI with a human capital. So they set in motion the signing of a joint declaration by these 4 religious delegates, and they affirmed their role as religious political leaders and representatives to uphold and to uphold the principles of human dignity and freedom to algora ethics. So as this a response to the call of AI ethics, I think it can serve as a springboard for future religious conversation, springboard for religious institutions, academics, churches on how to respond to the ethical challenges that arise from AI. In conclusion, I have to conclude and say it was very important for me to include a discussion of AI, since currently AI has become the most pervasive integrating system of technology in society and theological, religious anthropologies that could bring further diverse and multiple ethical implications. So I suggest that more research needs to be done to explore the human capital behind AI and how it affects jobs and skills demand for future online job postings internationally. Sorry for rushing through that, but thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dankers. Interesting. I'm learning some terminologies here. Digital religion, cyber religion. So really interesting stuff, and interesting to see that AI is actually going into all fields. So I think we reached the end of the presentations for this session, but for now we will have the Q&A session, and I would suggest that maybe there's some questions which have been asked in the Q&A chat there, and I think many people are answering, but for those presenters who have not yet gone there, if you click there, you'll find that there is 9 that are open, and these 9 that are open are the ones that have not been answered, or maybe somebody has not given an answer. And then there is 16 that have been answered. So if the presenters could just go there and check to see if maybe the questions that are referring to their talk, if they are there, then they can answer right there. So for this Q&A sessions, which is, I think, very short, I would suggest that maybe we do it this way. We just focus on the questions that have not been addressed, or maybe if we want to seek more clarification, we can go ahead. So I would say that we have had 6 presentations so far, and we would make sure that we divide this time amongst the 6 of them, so that each one of them at least has 1 question. So if we actually find that we go through each one of them, at least 1 question each, and then we still have time, then we can come back 1 more round. But there are some maybe might not have questions, then we can move faster. So I would say that if someone has a question, 1 person, a question on Dr. Caroline van den Berg presentation, which was titled, the topic was Advancing Sustainable Smart Innovations Through Transdisciplinary Learning Intervention, Insights from the Quintuple Helix Model. So if there is 1 question for her, maybe if someone has that question, you can go ahead asking. Thank you. Okay, is there anyone? Okay, then I move to the next presenter. So after her, the next presentation was by Mr. Sidney Mutelo. He was presenting on unmasking the significance of AI in curricular and pedagogical practices of higher education institutions in the era of the 4th Industrial Revolution. So if there is someone who has a question for Sydney, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Doctor. The first one is well, this one is just an anonymous attendee. Yes, to let me attempt to answer this one. I wouldn't say it is from a negative point of
Okay, maybe because the people might not have seen the question.
All right.
Just
Can I read it?
read the question first.
Okay, thank you. So as I said, this one is the second one is maybe let me start with the one of Abdullah Bayed. He or she, I think it's a he. He said, "Dear Mr. Sidney, what is the key finding of your research, and what does it mean for me as a lecturer who wants to integrate AI into my teaching?" Well, the key takeaway in this journal article that I've written, and I think it's a 20 pages document, is that in as much as AI is rapidly taking over other industries, education is also not left out. I've noticed that I'd rather say in our findings, we found out that the it's like the ground is fertile, but the men or the laborers are really not there. Like for example, you'd find students that are really keen to adopt the concept of AI in higher education, but the academics themselves, the administrators, they lack that knowledge. So it's up to you and I as academics to ensure that we cultivate the love of AI. I hope I've attempted to answer that. The next one is that AI integration into higher education institution is definite and essential as allocated, yet much of the news we get about AI in higher education is always from a deficient or negative perspective, rather than a positive perspective. So yes, and then the concluding part of this comment is that you speak about a comprehensive training program. What would be the basic content included in such a program? To say that the concept, the way it comes out is at a negative perspective, I wouldn't really say that, but I would say that how AI settles in different persons. So it varies from maybe one's opinion, because some people think that okay, AI being there makes our life easier, and then someone looks at it like no, you have a situation such as one of a shop that is in the UAE, United Arab Emirates, where there's no person in that store, and that store is viral on social media
I think
handles.
you should be summarizing because of time.
All right.
We still have
So it's that's kind of scare the people, and maybe it generates a negative perception of them. So what content would be there? In one of the slides I mentioned the various technologies that are out there. So from there, in future studies, a concept, a whole course can be developed and have very relevant content that is applicable in the 21st century. I think those are the only two, unless there's someone with a question here.
No. We only had one for each. So I left you to answer the second one because there was no question for Caroline. So the next presenter after that was Ms. Dominique Bowers, and she spoke on a bibliometric study of disruptive theory and supply chain management research, South African perspective. So if there is a question for her, one question, please go ahead.
Morning, everyone. I've answered some of the questions, but there's one that I didn't get to because of my network. So it says, Ms. Bowers, where would you like to see disruptive technologies coming to play at UWC as staff and lecturers? What do you think we need to be proactively looking into? That's from Janine Senecal. So haven't really put much thought into all of that, but I can think of three things that comes to mind. Curriculum integration using virtual reality. I think CH's faculty has been using virtual reality as well as information systems, providing us with a diploma, postgrad diploma in it. So having this hands-on learning could be a way of incorporating virtual reality technology into the labs, creating some form of simulation. So for healthcare practitioners, this would be something that would help them to practice and perform experiments like in science faculty, more complex concepts, and then have a controlled digital environment for them. Other things in terms of from a faculty perspective, you're looking at training and development, having better online faculty development programs. We do have so many academic administration programs, which is equipped to understand the current context of UWC. But if you're developing an online training module like this cyber safe thing that we did in terms of phishing and so on, it would allow us to be as academic administrators as well as staff to encourage continuous learning, and through certification also having a piece of paper essentially to show that you know exactly what it is that you are talking about, and creates and fosters peer collaboration. And then I think the last thing that comes through and from a lecturer perspective would probably be assessments and data analytics. So possibly utilizing a learning analytic platform to gather some sort of data engagement. We do have the student tracking system, and I don't know how well it works because I'm from a different context. So having and gathering student engagement as well as the performance and the behaviors could allow for predictive analytics to identify students that need additional support. Um, and obviously enable your instructor, your facilitator, your lecturer to adjust their teaching strategies based on real-time data and not 2-3 months down the line when you're doing a what's it called, a module evaluation. So I think assessment and data analytics for staff, infrastructure for the broader context, and then training development of faculty staff members, and then as for the student, having some sort of curriculum integration using augmented reality or virtual reality. That's my answer. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you so much. Then the next presenter was Prof. Chips, and the topic was actually grassroots uptake of smartphones in nursing education. So if there is a question for her, one question, please go ahead. Okay, thank you.
I did answer a number of questions, Clement.
Yeah, I
on
saw.
mine. Yeah, and
I
I'll just support what was said previously. You know, I think that we're already looking at some of the integration of technology into education, but I think we have to train our nursing, our lecturers, not our nursing staff, our lecturers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then after that was Ms. Shurufelo Mangadi. If there is somebody with a question that was not addressed in the Q&A window, please go ahead. Okay, then the final one.
I would say, could you please direct me? Could you please direct me towards the question? I'm not seeing it on my. Oh no.
Oh, there is a question that you didn't answer.
No, I'm saying please direct me to the question in which they ask me.
Yeah, but I think I saw most of the things that came up were answered by your supervisor.
Okay.
So I'm getting worried because I wanted you to be answering them. So yeah, and then the final one was by Dr. Paul Dankers on the challenges of digital theology pedagogy in religious practices and narratives. So if there is a question for him, please go ahead. Okay, so this is the end of this session, but maybe if there is One question which somebody might be having for any of these presenters, and you feel like you should ask, I would say maybe go ahead if there is one person with such a question. Okay, so thank you very much. So that was the end of the first segment. So now we will go into the second segment, and in this segment we have, I think, 5 presentations, and the first one is Prof. Ryan Mulder from the Faculty of Dentistry, and he will be speaking on student perspectives of infusing digital technology in preclinical prosthetic technique course. So it looks like it's a particular course there. And I would like to hand over to you, Prof. Mulder, to proceed with the presentation. It's 15 minutes. So depending on how fast you go, if I see that you still have a long way to go at 10 minutes, I will let you know that there is 5 minutes to go. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Clement. Are you able to see my screen? If you could just maybe indicate that you can see that, that would be fantastic.
Yes, I can see.
Excellent,
I think
thank you.
many of the people are also able.
Sorry, it doesn't want to start on my first slide, so I just want to do another selection. There we go. All right, good day, colleagues. So today we're going to talk about the student perspectives of infusing digital technologies into a course that we have at the Faculty of Dentistry for our second-year dental students, and that course is called Prosthetic Techniques. So the SDGs that we will be looking at is number 3, 4, and 9, and I will refer back to them as we go through the presentation. So the aim of this study was to actually look at these computer-aided design and manufacturing software to see how we would be able to incorporate it into our prosthetics course. Now, in this course, the students learn how to construct dentures. So they have a model of a jaw without any teeth, and then they must build the wax manually and then also add in the teeth into this denture. So it's a very physical, hands-on course. But we realized with COVID-19 that when you have a physical hands-on course, a training course like dentistry, we have to look at other alternatives as well in order to then also not only augment the student's experience, but also augment the way that we teach in order for these types of events in order to navigate them. So our objective then was to ask these undergrad students through the method of a questionnaire whether this CAD/CAM technology and the digital exercises that they've done actually helped their manual and hands-on techniques and whether it would have made them a better clinician. So this is the platform that we use for this purpose. It's called Denka Academy. And as you can see from the images here, there are various permutations of what the student would be able to do. For example, this is a patient, the top left image, that has no teeth in the top or the bottom. So they are going to then construct a denture for the patient. This is a scenario that I'm going to show you today where the patient has their own natural lower teeth, and you can see some of them are skew there, and you can see that there's some imperfections on the model because this is a scanned in model. And then the patient doesn't have any teeth at the top, so the student is going to design some teeth for them. And then obviously this was now only for the second year, so their level of experience, they're in the beginning stages of their career. But as the students or even postgraduate programs need more complicated permutations of this, there are others available. So when the student has signed in with the UWC account details, they would be able to then choose what they are going to do. So let's say today we're going to choose this as our new case, and we are going to then say, yes, we want to continue. The computer program, the CAD/CAM system, then generates this for us, where we are seeing the top jaw of the patient with no teeth. We're seeing the denture teeth that we're going to put in and the natural teeth at the bottom. So if a person would like to remove some of these items, like I've done here, you would be able to click here and then you would be able to remove those items. Now we can see our model or our patient, and we are going to start putting in the teeth. We can do some group selections, and the highlighted in ivory color is the amount of teeth that we would be able to move as we go through the system. And then once we've now started, it also assists the student in creating a three-dimensional perspective of what they are seeing, because we are now only looking at a computer screen, but you are able to then manipulate it in any direction, and the student can then start training their brain to think three-dimensionally, which is an extremely important aspect because we have to look at the X, Y, and the Z axis when we look at dental training. So here we see the example of what I'm going to do for you. So I did a screen record of this. So as you see, as I'm busy adjusting the model, I can literally rotate it in any one of the planes. And when I double click on the tooth, I'm able to move a single tooth, or I can move a group of teeth as it gets highlighted. I can switch my model around and then three-dimensionally see where are my teeth located in relation to the arch. And this is important to create that three-dimensional spatial view for the student in order to generate it. You will see these scores on the side. This is a scoring system based on the perfect setup of the teeth and alignment. So at the moment, I've only clicked it once, so I only have 45% in my position check. And in terms of my rotation check, I can get 59%. So this is a way of also evaluating the students and actually giving them an assessment mark based on the performance that they've done against a set standard. So it really takes away the ambiguity between supervisors saying, yes, yeah, you know, this looks really good. This tooth and this tooth isn't so nice. I'm going to give you a 40% or a 60% or 80%, whatever the case might be. So this also brings in a little bit of standardization. So we are now moving the teeth in the various aspects, and you can see I'm going to check my score, and immediately my score has gone up to 51% in my position check. And for my rotational check, it is 59%. So now you can manipulate the model and you can say, okay, I'm going to change my position a little bit more when I click on this mouse tab here. And then when I have a tooth like this, for example, which is really out of the arch and extremely skew, and even this block of teeth here that I cannot move individually at this stage, except for moving them bodily like I'm doing there, I would then go very shortly and click on my rotate button here. And then I'm able to take my teeth and then rotate them accordingly in order to get them into the arch. And you can see this is very similar to what we find in a clinical area where the student needs to maybe move one or two teeth that doesn't look right with the patient's face. And it is as difficult in the clinical area when you work with a real tooth and wax as it is on this model, or this digital model rather, of rotating it. And it really takes you a bit of time. And you can see there as I'm moving them, they don't always want to do what you want only in that one axis. So you need to work in the X, Y, and Z axis in order to get the teeth well aligned. And as you can see, my denture I have here currently, I can only score 54% in my positions. And there I'm starting to move the positions a little bit more that the teeth are better aligned. And 60% in my rotational check. So that is essentially the system that we use. And it really is a very, very good system, because if we look at our SDG goal 4, our quality of education, the students said that for the motivation part of our questionnaire, we looked at the whole class and they said that their confidence actually increased. And that was 78% of the respondents. So that's a really large percentage of the class that has gained confidence in this digital model even before they go into the laboratory setting and they physically need to do the process themselves. So it also removes that anticipation and fear of the unknown. When we look at our good health and well-being SDG, well, definitely. I mean, this is an exercise where we've now developed the three-dimensional skills of the person. Yes, there's no physical hands-on yet, but the concept and the way that they need to move the teeth and position them are there. So it's simply now a case of the brain is ready. We just need to transfer those skills to the hands. So our patients are automatically going to get a better treatment when we go into the clinical area. And then thanks to industry, addressing SDG 9, that have developed this open platform, and it's free to use to all the dental students that we've asked for from the University of the Western Cape. It really makes a huge difference. And I mean, if we look at what the students are saying in terms of handling, only 53% said that it was relatively easy. So that still leaves us with 47% of the students that actually struggled. So we need to also look into that and see, you know, is it a three-dimensional training your brain situation on why they struggled, or is it physically the operation on working on this computer? So that is something that we would need to explore further and find the answers to that. But as we can see, the students overwhelmingly agreed that it is a good software and it is really good. They all said that it should be incorporated throughout the prosthetic system for all of the years, because in the fourth year and the final year, the fifth year, we do different types of things. And it's important for them to then also have those skills and develop them three-dimensionally as well. So I thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Prof. Muda, for the interesting presentation. And it looks like you finished well before your time.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, no, I planned it very well. I cut the video short and everything in order to make sure, and I did a very quick setup. I mean, I only got 56%, so for the amount of dentures I've made, that's not a good amount of marks, but for a 1.5 minute setup, 56% is okay for now. We can always fine-tune it later.
Thank you so much. So colleagues, if you have questions for Prof. Muda, you can put them in the Q&A window there, and then he can answer them. But if there is some question where you feel like you need to engage with him, I think we can look at those ones in the Q&A session at the end. The next presenter is Dr. Carlin Keating from Institutional Planning, and her topic is Evaluating the Outcomes of Digital Inclusion Interventions, a story of unsung heroes and methodological complexities. Over to you, Dr. Keating.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Just share my screen. Okay. Okay, yeah, as was mentioned, I'm Colin Keating, and I'm a researcher at the CoLab for Inclusion and Social Innovation, which falls under institutional planning. With me in the webinar today, my colleague, Dr. Natasha Kutunga, will also assist in answering questions if need be. And the title of the presentation today is Evaluating the Outcomes of Digital Inclusion Interventions, a story of unsung heroes and methodological complexities. So I'll just give a very brief bit of background, some of the findings, and then conclude and give some lessons learned. Okay. So the CoLab, the topic that we work on, and the theme and objective we work towards is digital inclusion, and we have a mandate to contribute towards the National Digital Skills Agenda of South Africa. And with that, we are very much research focused, but we also do a lot of targeted digital skills interventions, and we carry that out through different community-based organizations which are located across the Western Cape province. And it's everything from very basic type of digital skills training to more advanced programs. And so over the past few years, we've really started to move away from a focus on outputs in terms of how many people have we trained towards looking at the outcomes and the impact of the training. So essentially trying to see, are we making a difference in the lives of the people that we are training or the beneficiaries of the programs? What type of difference, what's working, what's not, where do we need to do better? And so in light of that, we did a study towards the end of 2021 looking at exactly that. And we looked at a number of our different training interventions and through the lens of the typical building blocks of a logic model, which looks at the inputs, activities, the outputs, as I mentioned, number of people trained. And where we focused really in the study was on that outcomes block. So the types of changes that are occurring in the lives of the beneficiaries or possibly their broader families or communities. Outcomes is more geared towards short-term to medium-term changes. It can also include longer-term effects, although when you look at that, that does start to move more into the impact block, which are the broader changes seen at either the individual or the collective community level. And I think we did capture some of that, but the focus was really on the outcomes. So we looked at 3 of our training interventions. These are all happening in under-resourced communities. The basic one was mobile digital literacy. And then of our more advanced courses, we looked at the IBM and Coursera courses. We looked at people that were trained during the 2020 and 2021 period. And the study was primarily conducted in the Western Cape province. So most of the data comes from this province, but we were then requested to do it at a national level, and we managed to collect data from 5 additional provinces. It was a mixed method study. So in that sense, we use surveys, designing one for each intervention for the beneficiaries. And I'll speak a bit more about how that was conducted a bit later on. Then we also did a brief survey for the training providers, and where really a lot of the richer and meaty data came from was interviews with the training providers. So I'm not going to go too detailed in the findings of the study, especially the quantitative, the stats parts, just to say, to give a very quick picture of something that we looked at, or the types of findings that came out of the study. From the get-go, at the most basic level, we asked people, do you feel that you benefited from the training? The stat speaks to the mobile digital literacy program, where the large majority responded that they did benefit from the training. The findings and the trends of the other programs are very, very similar in terms of the figures. So in terms of those benefits and those outcomes that came out of the study, we were able to group them into 3 different categories or domains, specifically psychological, economic, and social changes. And the points listed under these 3 categories are not intended to be exhaustive, but they give a good depiction of what's going on under each of these umbrellas. In the psychological domain, we looked, for example, at that deals with more sort of mind shift or mindset changes or attitudinal changes in terms of the type of thinking around digital skills and technologies. And we found, for example, especially with people that did some of the more advanced courses, that they felt more confident to enter the world of work. In the economic category on financial savings, this is particularly those that did actually the more basic skills training. What we found there was that many of the daily types of tasks or activities that you and I here in this webinar are able to do on our mobile phones, many of the people in these communities were going to internet cafes, those types of centers, and using their assistance and services to do that. So once they were able to do that from their own device, they could do it in the comfort of their own home. And so it saves them money, the cost that they would have incurred at the internet cafe, and also the savings in the transport to get to and from that venue. Obviously also the newfound employment and self-employment, more for those that did of the more advanced programs. And then in the social category, extended use of mobile technologies in communication and social life, and use of mobile technologies for practical activities. So just like looking up general information, or interesting one, now being able to assist your children with their homework. To just expand a little bit on one of those outcomes, this is in the economic field, and this extract comes from one of the training providers that we interviewed, and he said, one of the students in Kailicha, this course inspired him. He became now a mobile internet cafe where he comes to your house. He charges you for his internet that you use on your cell phone or tablet. He does web searches for the people, sends the emails for them in the comfort of their own home, download videos, watch a bit of YouTube. They pay X amount. I mean, that's income for him, implementing his mobile literacy skills. This guy took innovation to a whole new level. And it's also interesting that this is just coming from the very basic mobile digital skills course. Other example, it's a really nice one, is that we had someone that did this basic training, did some of our more advanced courses, continued upskilling himself, and then started working for the training organization, and eventually left there. And I think he has a job at, I think it's a US-based tech company, and he works remotely now from South Africa for this company. So that's moving more even into the impact field of changes. I'm mentioning examples that are clearly falling more in the economic category, but it's definitely not to say that that is, everything. The psychological and the social changes are really important as well. I think something that's often taken for granted, which many of the people said in the survey, in the open-ended responses, is that I can now do this on my own. And just that sense of independence is so important to people, where you've had to be relying on other people to do things for you, really daily things on a device that are necessary for all of us in this digital society. Now you've had to be relying on people to either do it for you or to keep assisting you and helping you to do it. And especially we're now doing a project, for example, on older adults, that independence is really, really appreciated by people. Then another key part of the study looked at what are the critical factors that are required to successfully deliver these types of digital skills interventions. And there were a number of those, but for the purpose of the study, I'm just going to focus on the role of support, the supportive role of these training providers. And they do so much more than just stand there and teach digital skills. So they are really involved in providing social support to facilitate the adoption and the use of digital technologies. And that's by way of instrumental support. So that's the more material support, where many people either don't have access to a device and can't afford the data, or have some level of access, but not enough where they are able to really meaningfully engage with technologies at a more advanced level, the more data intensive types of uses of technologies where often more benefits lie. And so they need these centers for that reason. Then obviously the informational component, the imparting the knowledge and the digital skills, which are often still lacking in many communities. And then the emotional aid touches on what I mentioned earlier. Many of the people that are looking to their networks for assistance with digital technologies are not really receiving the type of supportive, friendly, patient type of assistance. And that's really important in this as well. And then the motivational factor is really important, the roles that these training providers are playing before people even get to the training. There still seems to be, from the reports of the training providers, people in communities are still not really seeing the level of value of digital skills and digital skills training interventions and attending these types of training interventions. And so they really have to do a lot to raise awareness in that regard, to get people excited to learn. They really have to work towards that as well. And it's not just, you would think maybe it's the younger people that they need to work on, but it's often some of the interviews, these trainers spoke about the parents of older adults, where there's opposition to my adult children going to attend these types of trainings, because if the financial situation in the house isn't great, which it is in many of these communities, there's a sense that there is no time for you to waste and go mess around in whatever types of intervention it is. You need to contribute to the income of this household by going to work in whatever job it is that you can get. You need to provide some type of income. So the training providers really have to play a change agent role in the communities. They also need to support with social challenges that impede participation in these training interventions, things that go way beyond digital skills that you wouldn't even necessarily think of. For example, an organization spoke about needing to assist with transport where people want to attend but can't make it to the venue. They can't afford public transport costs, for example. Another person, a training provider, spoke about how is he supposed to effectively teach people when they are sitting in front of him, unable to concentrate simply because they are hungry. They haven't had anything to eat. And so he actually partnered with a feeding scheme in the community, which also speaks to the bigger role of the ecosystem and collaboration in these projects. But he partnered with him where he could at least provide the beneficiaries of the training with something to eat during the course of the day. And then one of our partners in George, they provide sanitary pads to the girls involved in the organization because they feel that that's an important component as well. So just to show that it does go well beyond just the teaching of digital skills. And to add that these training providers often don't get recognition for what they do. So that was part of why we wanted to present on this today. And then lastly, just to touch on the methodological complexities of doing outcomes assessments like this and some of the lessons learned, and I won't go into all of this for the sake of time, but I think to talk about the low response rate, and I'm sure as academics we all know that there's an issue of low response rates to surveys in general, particularly then to online surveys, which is the way that we went initially, because obviously you want to get as big of a number of responses as possible. And face-to-face is often difficult in that respect. So yeah, we sent out the links via email. Was not very successful at all. We then sent it out to people via SMS. It yielded slightly better results, but still not great. We had to use incentives also to really try and up the numbers a bit there and motivate people to participate in the surveys, which also speaks again to the costs involved in, I think, in doing research, but especially when it comes to doing evaluations. And ultimately, we had to revert back to these same types of organizations that I've been talking about now, and really get their assistance in this regard. And so they played a big role in firstly motivating the communities because they already had that trusted relationships. So motivating people in the communities to please go ahead and complete the survey. Where you can't, because many people can't because of, like I said, the access is still a huge issue in digital divide. Come to our centers. They really encourage people to come to the centers, use our devices and our data and complete the survey. Many people, even though you've done this basic digital literacy course, it's difficult to navigate online surveys still, especially on your phone. As easy or as user-friendly as we try to make it, can still be complicated. So then they had to play that role in assisting people to navigate and finish the online survey. And ultimately also print out hard copies of the paper-based and have people fill it in at the centers. And that was the only way really for us to get our data at the end of the day. So I just want to end off by then emphasizing this critical supportive role of these training providers and organizations, not only in effectively delivering digital skills interventions in South Africa, but then also enabling these types of outcomes evaluations, which are still really lacking in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Interesting presentation. And I would like colleagues to ask that if you have questions to her, put them in the Q&A window. And if you still have more questions, you can keep them for the Q&A session. And we will move on to the next presenter. And I think the next presenter is Mr. Sianda Kobokana from the Faculty of Arts and Humanities. And his topic is Radio as a Locus of Making Persons Under Apartheid and Post-Apartheid, looking at Jimmy and my uncle's culture of radio listenership in South Africa, Eastern Cape. This is in line with SDG number 4. So over to you, Mr. Kobokana.
Or hear me. Can you hear me or can you see my presentation?
Yeah, I can hear you and I see your presentation. Are you presenting from a cell phone?
Yes, from a cell phone. My laptop just decided to die on me, and it's load shedding this side of the world. And yeah, so I decided to use my cell phone. So I hope that I'm audible, and also my screen is also
yes.
Okay, cool.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. So today I'll be presenting a part of what I would like to call a segments of a series over my works on my family, works on my uncles who were very heavily involved in the struggle, and one of my uncle who went to Angola to spend some time there during exile, and also work on my family history because I believe that it's important whilst we are in academia, it's important for us to speak about those who never had the opportunity to have their voices heard. And, you know, my family and my grandfather, who was very much my first history teacher, you know, never went to school, but he was very astounded and he was a great teacher of many history lessons towards me. So the title of my article, or I would say this is a work in progress, not an article, but I'm still working on it, is Radio as a Locus of Making Persons Under Apartheid and in Post-Apartheid, looking at the possibilities of radio podcasting in the post-apartheid to advance quality and accessible education for both young and old listeners. So the expected outcomes for this presentation are as follows. I would love to I'm a historian in training, so I'd like to give some sort of a background into the history of radio broadcasting in South Africa and look at how, you know, that broadcasting at its earlier stages was accepted and received by the people, but more specifically, the Africans who were not seen as citizens of what was then South Africa, but who were seen as citizens belonging to the Bantustan. So I'm looking at radio and how actually radio, even though it was made to dominate us as Africans, but Africans equally turned it around to use it as a voice of resistance. And I'm also looking at podcasting as a way in which radio has been reinvented in the post-apartheid. And also I'm looking at my family's culture of listening into radio under apartheid and the stories that I was told by Jimmy. And I'm also going to look at the object biography of Jimmy's radio, you know, the physical properties of the radio that he bought and purchased, and the one that I grew up listening to, and also my relationship with that radio and how I looked at the radio as an educational tool. And then also my thoughts have also been, recentering at the question of access, to digital means of media. And I've seen that in the post-apartheid, especially in the late 2000s, there's been a large turn to digital forms of radio listenership, but some people have been left behind. And my work is to try and see and think about ways in which we could kind of, limit that divide. And then also, I also want to look at the barriers. What are some of the barriers that that are in place to hinder access to podcasting educational content? And then at the end, I would like all of us to look at the possibilities of radio podcasting in the creation of new listeners, because my project or my work basically argues that radio created a personhood in me and created a person that was very curious about education. And I believe that equally that radio can have that power in creating new persons also in the post-apartheid. So as I said briefly, so this year we celebrated 100 years of radio broadcasting in South Africa, but not just radio broadcasting, and we must also kind of equally recognize radio listenership, which is something that has been very largely neglected in studies. So 100 years, and I'm just going to briefly go through this. 1923, 20th century, radio is introduced to kind of provide reports and news on the World War II, and also to provide British propaganda, because at the time, South Africa was still in a way under the British, because we have not been yet a republic. So our news was just about providing news. And also at the same time, it was about ensuring that we create a listenership that would be docile, of Black Africans that would be docile and just passive. And that would also garner up support for the Queen and also for Britain. That's the history. But if you look at the history of radio podcasting in South Africa, which largely takes off, and I'm running through here, right? Largely takes off in the 2000s. You'll see that it comes out from the whole development of this new wave over digital media, and people really having, if you look at our South African society, a lot of people really have access, not a lot, but there's been an emergence of or some form of accessibility on digital devices like phones. And if you look at students, they've also had laptops, and students have some Wi-Fi. So there's been a turn to listening to radio podcasting by those who have access to some form of access to the internet as a consequence. So radio podcasting grew massively in South Africa during lockdown because a lot of people were at home. And, one of the other things that I've seen about radio is that it's spatial, and that it creates environments through which people can be intimate with the whole exercise of listening. So because it was quiet and because there was an element of another pandemic of loneliness, people then had the ability to listen. And that's where there was this emergence of listening to radio podcasting. And, funny enough, a lot of people have this perception that podcasts are just about entertainment. But, a lot of podcasts that really crept up during that time were really educational podcasts about the pandemic. I learned, I'm a history student, but I learned a lot about the COVID-19 pandemic, even from a medicinal scientific point of view. And that way I could also kind of engage with other students, and not feel inferior. But, even podcasts like MacG's and Podcast and Chill have been able to provide an educational platform, even in ways that have been commercial, so why do this? Why I want to pursue this article, that I want to do? It's because I think radio podcasting can be used as a tool to advance, in the process of education, outside of a building of a university, outside of a building of a school. But obviously, issues of access are important. But I think it's also, I think it's very much important for us to look at podcasting and radio podcasting very much as a domain or as a site through which we could also advance and also kind of reach in the digital divide, because people can access it. And radio, the nice thing about radio is that you move around with it, so it's mobile, and unlike TV where you kind of have to sit at some point somewhere. I know there's other forms of ways in which you watch TV, but you know, cheaper forms now of really accessing media, you know, through, you know, radio and radio podcasting, because you can listen to it in your phone whilst you walk, in your car, etc. And you know, the other thing that I want to kind of highlight in my study is that, you know, the history of radio podcasting or the history of radio has always been about, and also educational programs in radio, the studies have always been about people who have produced such programs. And little attention has been paid to people like my grandfather who developed listening cultures, you know. And also as a historian, I want to do like history from below. And just of time, I think I need to move. So at home, we had this radio, which is very dear to my heart, which I later named Radio Resistance. And this was a Panasonic RF 1090 AM FM, a great of its time. It was portable and silver in color. Me and my granddad listened to it. Every listening session moment became a history lesson. My granddad told me histories of post-wars of resistance, liberation struggle, and my two uncles' participations in that struggle. My granddad basically was my first history teacher. My granddad basically used to tell me about how under apartheid, they, you know, at the KwaZulu Township, they developed a listening culture, which was quite secretive, because at the time, if you were caught listening to radio programs such as Radio Freedom, which were banned by the apartheid government, you were liable to an 8-year prison sentence. So listenership was a form of bravery under apartheid. But listenership post-apartheid, seemingly even when there's been a freedom of the airwaves, we've seen that there's been a decline really in the listening of radio. And I think radio podcasting, which is much a cooler way, can kind of reignite that interest of our young people. Older people are still listening to radio, funny enough. Over 14 million active listeners across the whole country. This is my granddad, Jimmy. Love him so much. So I spoke about this, and you know, under apartheid, what I saw, what developed, you know, was this creative and also insurgent listenership, which was a culture, right? And if you were, as I said, if you were caught listening to radios such as those that were banned of the ANC, you would be arrested. So we kind of need to, and I think for my people, what I would love kind of highlight is the importance of really emphasizing on radio podcasting as a tool to create this new listenership that would be interested also in education. So as we all know, you know, my paper might be a bit philosophical. I'm sorry, I'm from the history department. Unlike the two doctors and the professors who gave a comprehensive and practical presentation. But what we all know is that South Africa largely remains unequal, and when it comes to the access of quality education, the digital divide also is widening that. Podcasting, you know, and radio education should be encouraged by the government, and the government should invest in it. It can be a more powerful because radio is accessible and cheap in terms of the radio that we owned back home. Radios now are more cheaper, and podcasting is cool and trendy amongst you. So there is a need for building the education, an education that can be easily accessible, and we can access that through the airwaves. And I hope that my presentation made a bit of sense. I had to present, I am going to have to present some of my, recommendations and findings of this at Lusaka next year in a radio intercolonization conference. So thank you so much. I think that for me is time. Thank you for being off here and listening. Let's continue to listen. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So I was worried because you are a historian, so I thought that you would just go all the way. And then I'll have problems to stop you because as you were presenting, I am from natural sciences. So I was like, what is it about the radio that this gentleman is going to present on? Then I kind of like got hooked. So I, at some point, was not checking the time, but thank you for remaining within the time. So,
Thank you.
yeah, so, but hang on until the end and also check on the Q&A window. There might be some questions for you. And there might also be some people who will have questions for you at the end. So thank you so much. So the next presenter is Miss Nomonde Zama from EMS, and she's speaking on tracing the intellectual landscape, a bibliometric analysis of business analytic and supply chain management. I just have a feeling that she probably works together with Dominic.
different group,
Oh,
but we
okay,
in the same
okay.
class. Yes.
Okay. I was like, what? It sounds there's something similar. So, yeah, so this is actually addressing SDG 11, 12, and 13. So over to you, Nomonde.
Thank you so much, Clement. Good day, everyone. Can I please share my screen? Am I still audible? Are you able to see my our presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a presentation that is done by Usinazo, Wayne, myself, and Osihle, and some of my colleagues are also online, so they will be also assisting with the Q&A. We wrote an article on tracing the intellectual landscape. It's a bibliometric analysis of business analytics and supply chain management. In today's rapidly changing business environment, efficient supply chain management is crucial for business success, and organizations must compete in the global market and network economy. This presentation will help us to explore the intellectual landscape of business analytics and supply chain. So we looked at articles ranging from year 2015 until the current year. A growing number of companies are using big data analytics in supply chain management, with a large proportion of 60% of related research published after 2017. We have also referenced the author on the screen. The rapidly evolving business landscape demands efficient supply chain management and the use of business analytics to stay competitive and meet the ever-changing world of analytics. So in our research, the approach involved conducting a bibliometric analysis of articles. As I've stated in my introduction, we focused on 2015 until the current year, and the focus was on specific keywords, which include business analytics, supply chain management, big data, and others. The research framework was used to guide the methodology to help us achieve the goals of comprehending the intellectual landscape of multi-criteria decision-making methods in the specific field over the chosen time frame. So as the ones that designed, we created our own research framework to give us some guidance on how to do the analysis of the different articles that we researched on Scopus, and we also use Force Viewer as our network analysis for mapping.
Okay, so from our results, this is just an overview. We picked up that business analytics and supply chain management is still a relevant topic with the highest number of articles published, which is like 208 out of 404. So this topic remains relevant. It shows that business analytics and supply chain in this day and era is still day and age of big data, your data science, your technology, your digitization. It's still relevant. We looked at the impactful authors and the publications, and the study reveals that the authors, Joel Casa and Sign SK, have made significant contributions to this field. Their works such as Green Innovation and Organizational Performance, the influence of big data, and the moderating role of management commitment and HR practices. So this is the paper, the article paper that they wrote. And in this paper, they are highlighting the role of technology and innovation in transforming organizations. And also this also shows that the authors also focused on sustainable development in terms of that companies still need to adhere and comply into driving sustainable development. As much as innovation is coming into play and new tools in terms of technologies that are being introduced in the industries to improve efficiency, also they need to take into consideration that the environment is still protected at the same time. So we also want to look at the role of technology and innovation. Organizations worldwide are leveraging technology and innovation to transform their operations. For example, the study points out the importance of global sustainable supply chain management, which are highlighted as the authors were some of the previous authors were referenced and cited the most because of the awareness that they bring into the academia as well, highlighting global sustainability and to bring environmental awareness when adopting to new technologies. Supply chains have significantly contributed to greenhouse gas emissions, which include from packaging, your plastics, transportation, improper disposal waste material. And also organizations have a massive obligation to be mindful and be aware of the environmental impacts regarding pollution, which calls for a more environmental supply chain. So as much as we are transforming towards the digital age, because of the fourth industrial revolution, we also need to be aware of the environment, that whatever change or whatever innovation that we are bringing into the industry, but also we need to take into considerations the value of protecting our environment as well. So technology, innovation, and the environment goes hand in hand in what we have studied so far. The study also shows that countries like the United Kingdom, China, India, these are first world countries, and they are well ahead in terms of innovation and technology. And they're always introducing new things into the market. So they are at the forefront of business analytics and supply chain management. However, there's a noticeable lack of research in South Africa, indicating a need for more focus on this region. So we picked up that when we were doing our bibliometric analysis, your first world countries, they had more contact related to business analytics and supply chains. But when you want to drill it down, so from a global perspective, you will have a view of the topic and what it covers. But when you have to drill it down to a macro analysis where you look at a specific country, especially in a developing country like South Africa, you will find that there's limited literature in the market. So it makes it difficult for our studies to make a good comparison of what is actually happening in developing countries and where are we lacking and what are the gaps and what would take us to meet the innovations steps that the first world countries are at currently. And so key highlights, we have from the articles, we picked up common challenges in business analytics, which include your high cost data aggregation and visibility and demand forecasting. So you'd find that in companies, they have different systems in terms of legacy systems, and they're pulling data from different sources. And you don't have a single view of this data, making it hard to make timely decisions, to make the right analysis and making informed decisions. So you'd find that as much as you have the technology, but if your foundation in terms of managing your data and all of that is not in place, you don't have the right processes, you don't have standardizations of processes, of systems, of data in place, then you'll find a challenge that as much as you might have the technology, but it does not guarantee the success. That is why the articles that we have researched on highlight strategic alignment is very crucial. And then also adopting of emerging technologies. We refer to the adoption of innovation theory by Rogers. He's highlighting the influence of factors like digital infrastructure, skills, and government support on technology adoption. So we picked up that in developing countries, especially with your small, medium enterprises, you find that there's lack of support, there's lack of funding from government when they want to grow their business or they want to acquire the necessary technology and resources to enhance their business. Hence, in developing countries, you find that technology, when you have to measure it, the maturity, you'd find that we are very low because there's lack of support, lack of funding, lack of strategic support, also from the top management, depending on different companies as well. And then we look at the future of business analytics and supply chain. I think here we are just drawing closer to our conclusion that in our results, we picked up that business analytics and supply chain management, it remains at the top. This topic, it will continue to evolve, and it has potential to enhance organizational performance, improve efficiency, and overall the whole supply chain will be improved as well if we apply business analytics and also integrate it with supply chain. So that way we are trying to enhance by choosing the best practice principles and applying the best knowledge also on the foundation of defined processes that would want to bring enhancement and success into the organization. So research limitations, as I've stated in my introduction, we must acknowledge the limitations of our study. One notable limitation is the scarcity of research material in South Africa. There's limited research, making it hard to draw conclusions for developing countries. The only thing that we could pick up was the small, medium enterprises, that they are experiencing challenges when it comes to funding from government, when they want to grow their business or when they want to invest in the new emerging technologies. So overall, it made it very hard and challenging to draw concrete conclusions when we compare the two worlds, your global context and also your local context. Key takeaways, to summarize, the study offers valuable insight into the landscape of business analytics and supply chain management, bridging research gaps, as we have stated, that there's limited research in developing countries. And also it is crucial for further advancement in this topic because we are in the fourth industrial revolution, and the technology, we have emerging technologies which are changing the industries and changing the businesses. And also in the midst of introducing these technologies and wanting to improve efficiencies and saving on operational costs, we also need to take into consideration how we balance protecting the environment, how companies comply with sustainable development into global sustainable development or protecting the environment. Also, we have also acknowledged the different writers that we sourced our data from. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nomonde. So we actually made it that if people have questions, they'll put them in the Q&A window there. So please make sure that you check in there, because people are probably asking there, and you need to answer right there. But if there is some questions which people might have, we can, the other questions that people might have, we can actually look at them in the Q&A session at the very end. And I want also to use this opportunity to inform Sia Kobokana that there is some questions for you in the Q&A session window there, and somebody is actually asking for your contact, your email. So please attend to that window. So then we have the final presentation for the day, and it's by Mr. Johannes Siku, or is it Johannes Siku, and Miss Diana Ogega, and they are from the Faculty of Law, and they are speaking on conceptualizing AI tools as a sustainable approach to higher education in South Africa. So I'm again curious. It feels like it should be something from the Faculty of Education, but it's lawyers who are actually presenting on this. So maybe it's higher education with respect to law, but we'll hear more from their presentation. So it's over to you, Mr. Siku and Miss Ogega. Thank you. Oh, we can't hear you. You are muted.
Hello, good afternoon. I understand the expectation that the discussion on AI should come from the IT department, perhaps, but it is a discussion that cannot be avoided by all faculties in education, in as much as how are we going to apply AI to our particular faculties in the teaching and learning. So I'll start my presentation. I don't know, the slide isn't okay. Yeah, so the field of artificial intelligence has experienced significant and rapid growth, leading to its widespread acceptance and criticism in various domains. And subsequently, the discourse on the use of artificial intelligence in higher education cannot be overlooked. This research acknowledges that quality education as an SDG can better be developed and improved with the use of AI tools. We went through a report by UNESCO, a 2023 report, and they get to state that AI has the capacity to accelerate the process of achieving global education goals. And the implementation of AI tools in South Africa's higher education sector is likely to enhance education and learning and to reduce barriers to enable access to learning, to automate management processes within the education system, and to optimize methods of teaching. Briefly, we can look at what is artificial intelligence. This was first defined by John McCarthy, who is considered to be the founder of AI in 1955, to be one of the founders, not just the founder. There are a number of founders, but John McCarthy's definition, he stated that he envisioned AI as the developing of machines that behave as though they are intelligent, machines that seek to mimic human intelligence. In the present day, artificial intelligence refers to systems which display intelligent behavior by analyzing their environment and taking action. In a 2020 report by the AI Watch for Europe, they analyzed 55 credible definitions and said that what cuts across all these definitions is that AI comprises of systems which seek to mimic human intelligence. That is what separates from AI from other forms of technology. So there are two forms of AI, that is generative and non-generative AI. Generative AI is that which receives commands and generates new data. Non-generative AI receives commands and performs tasks. The levels of artificial intelligence, the recognized levels of artificial intelligence are three. Artificial narrow intelligence, which has a narrow range of abilities. Artificial general intelligence, which is at par with human capabilities, and artificial superintelligence, which is more capable than human intelligence. At present day, we have gotten to artificial narrow intelligence. We are yet, globally, we have not yet gotten to artificial general intelligence. What does this mean? There are no machines at the moment which can compete with human capabilities. But we have machines at the moment, systems and software that can seek to mimic human intelligence with a narrow range of abilities, but there is no single machine, system, or software at the moment that can compete at par with human capabilities. How do we leverage AI for quality education? According to UNESCO, there are two major ways in which AI can be leveraged, and that is by implementing AI-boosted education management systems and by incorporating AI-powered tools in teaching and learning. That means we get to implement AI in our administration and management of education institutions, higher education institutions, and we also get to incorporate AI-powered tools in our teaching and learning processes, that this will ultimately improve the quality of education. So AI tools for improved education management systems. AI is not a novel concept in South Africa's higher education system. AI-powered tools have previously been used by institutions and continue to be used by institutions of higher education. I used a good example there of the UWC chatbot, which we are all familiar. That is an AI-powered chatbot that helps to assist people to navigate the UWC website more. Even so, there remains a world of possibilities when it comes to the incorporation of AI tools in education management. There are still so many AI-powered tools that we can use to leverage our education management systems. And this can assist in streamlining administrative functions and automation of routine tasks, generating and auditing of reports, summarizing enrollment data, virtual assistants. I have listed examples of softwares that currently exist that can assist higher education institutions in performing this task, which would otherwise be done manually. So yeah, in the interest of time, I will not discuss each and every software. The use of AI-powered tools in teaching and learning. This can greatly improve the quality of teaching and learning. It can help in course and lesson plan creation, differentiated learning, in auto-grading, in pinpointing knowledge gaps, in virtual tutoring, and in as a virtual smart teacher assistant, and for test preps. I will use differentiated learning just to explain one of the ways. Differentiated learning is able to identify the weaknesses of a particular student. So if they are able to undertake assessments on the website, for instance, through the semester or through the academic year, you can be able to identify the topics which this particular student is weak at, as opposed to all the other students. And this enables a specific oriented approach when you're dealing with each and every student. AI tools, when deployed by well-trained and well-supported teachers, can be invaluable. We already acknowledge the significant role that AI has played in the teaching and learning space during the COVID-19 pandemic. And hence we have argued in our paper that AI would scaling up the integration of AI tools will enhance personalized support for students. It will align the teaching process process to learning goals and outcomes, and it will promote skills development for careers and life in the AI era, because we are training students to go out to an AI world, and they should be able to be well equipped to deal with the challenges that they'll come up with in an AI world. At this stage, I will hand over to my colleague Jay to go on.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon to everyone. So I'll specifically be dealing with the part that deals with suggesting policy frameworks for AI tools. So the second objective of this research speaks to suggesting policy frameworks that would serve as a guide for utilizing AI tools in higher education, thus ensuring the use thereof in a manner that would result in quality, sustainable higher education. This will be done mainly through analyzing how other jurisdictions, the jurisdictions that we have identified and that will subsequently be provided are China, the EU, and then the US, have successfully incorporated and applied AI tools in their respective higher education syllabuses. Subsequently, we will suggest incorporating these frameworks in a manner fitting to the South African context. This will be aligned with Sustainable Development Goal 4, which speaks to ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all. Notably, the idea of AI in education is rather an exciting undertaking, and it is one which seems rather inescapable. However, a prominent scholar on the topic, which is Matthew Ling, in his article, My Vision for the Future of Artificial Intelligence in Education, cautions us against the use or pitfalls of AI along the benefits thereof. So thus, it is a necessary endeavor to incorporate AI and AI tools in the higher education system. However, it is necessary for this to be regulated in order to minimize, potentially eradicate any or all pitfalls or risk associated with AI tools in higher education, and thereby ensuring the use thereof in a manner that would result in quality, sustainable higher education. Moving on to this, a major pitfall to AI in education is that of ethical consideration. So that's what most scholars fear, ethical considerations. So the argument here is that AI lacks a moral compass, and humans have moral compass, or biological intelligence have a moral compass. However, towards data science argues that AI is as ethical as its developer, right? So in this regard, they make two important recommendations. First being that we should have ethics built into the idea of why a certain piece of technology equipped with AI is being developed. And then secondly, we should then monitor the outcomes of that specific piece of technology in order to fully understand its behavior and make sure that it is not violating our human or moral compass. So a suggestion here too would then be, or a suggestion on how to resolve this issue is to integrate courses on AI ethics into university curriculum, such as been done by the St. Louis University, as well as Oxford and the Cambridge universities. So those are specific universities we can adopt from with regards to AI policies and how they have implemented AI, as well as formulating an AI curriculum or syllabus. Also, a major contributor to the use of AI today is the COVID-19 pandemic. We can't run away from that fact. The COVID-19 pandemic, although not the sole contributor, had a major impact on the use of AI, especially for higher education institutions. Higher education institutions had to completely move away from traditional methods of teaching and learning, and subsequently entirely move to online learning. We are all aware of this fact. However, with the ensuing or end of COVID-19, institutions are adopting a more hybrid form of teaching and learning, and it seems that AI tools is an inescapable prerogative. Implementing ways to regulate AI tools, especially for teaching and learning, is thus important in this regard. So institutions are already making use of AI tools. Look, for example, at the eCanva platform that we use as UWC. This is already an AI tool, and how academic activities are disseminated there speaks to the incorporation of AI tools in education or higher education. The regulation thereof basically eCanva platform is also prudent and speaks to how we can regulate AI tools. So how we regulate.
5 minutes to go.
All right, thank you. Or how we regulate the eCanva platform is basically important, or shows how we can then regulate AI tools. So AI tools and how it's regulated within China. So China regulates AI tools. It has like legislation that regulates AI in its entirety, and that regulation is then adopted into its education systems. Like even in primary schools, they use AI tools to basically learn or teach students. So we can then adopt from China, looking at all these various legislations and how they regulate this. We can then also look at the EU recommendations, specifically Artificial Intelligence Act, as well as look at the US, specifically the Biden administration blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights and other laws governing AI within the various states in the US. This can then be adopted for South Africa and subsequently for South African higher education institutions. So we'd look at all these regulatory frameworks in conjunction with South African laws on AI and curate or suggest a concise regulatory framework for AI in higher education, and thereby ensuring the use of AI tools in a manner that would result in quality, sustainable higher education. The paper, or our paper, is still in its development stage, and of course we welcome any comments or criticism that would make a positive contribution towards our work. Thank you very much for listening, and that's where we end off with our presentation.
Thank you, Johannes and Diana. Yeah, so are you from the Faculty of Education or the Faculty of Law?
We are from the Faculty of Law.
Okay. Okay. So I thought maybe
Faculty of Law.
The way they put the names on the schedule, there was a mistake because I couldn't see something about law in the topic. The title of your presentation is Conceptualizing AI Tools as a Sustainable Approach to Higher Education in South Africa. So
yes, sir.
I don't see anything about law in there. And then when I listened to your presentation, it was towards the end now that I think issues to do with legal aspects started coming out. So I feel like maybe, because you said this is still a work in progress, so I feel like maybe there will be a need for you to properly structure the topic or the title of your manuscript, and let the legal issues that you are trying to bring out, especially towards the end of your presentation, to come out more clearly. So that was the confusion that I was having. Yeah. So, okay. Thank you very much. And I like all the tools that I think came up when Diana was presenting. I think these are the things that I think our people maybe need to get hands on because things are moving very fast. So at this stage, I would say now we are going into the Q&A session. So not just for you and Diana, but for the rest of the presenters. So just like we did in the first session, we will also give one question for each presentation that took place here. So we had, I think, 5 presentations here. So I would say that maybe if somebody has a question that was not put in the chat and was not answered in the Q&A session, for Prof. Ryan Mulder, who presented on student perspective of infusing digital technology in preclinical prosthetic technique course. If there is a question, at least one question on that you would like him to answer, please go ahead. Okay, it's quiet, so it means there is no question for Prof. Mulder. Then the second presentation after that was by Dr. Colin Keating. When I saw the name, I thought that maybe this person is somebody new in UWC, but when I saw the face, I thought that is the face that I know already. So there's a change of a surname, I think. So the topic was evaluating the outcomes of digital inclusion intervention, a story of unsung heroes and methodological complexities. So if there is a question that you want Karen to answer here that was not addressed in the Q&A window, please go ahead. One question. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, please.
There was a question which I did answer, but I thought of a bit more that I can add to it just very quickly. The question was about recommendations for doing monitoring and evaluation in these communities. And these are all, it's called the Made in Africa movement on evaluation in Africa and developing countries. So that's quite interesting to look into. A few more things besides what I added in the Q&A is, and I had this in the presentation, but doing baseline assessments, which we didn't always do, and also just making your baseline assessments perhaps a bit more nuanced instead of just asking, can you do this, this, and this, asking about what is the nature of the support that you have available to you at the moment. Yeah. Then there's also the issue of monitoring and tracking participants, which often falls sort of by the wayside. And that's why I think we had at the very beginning already an issue of we sent surveys to people and then the contact information just isn't even correct. So it's really important to keep track of that. And then also the last thing that I'll add is in doing evaluations, it's really useful and advisable to have a developed theory of change already at the beginning before you go out and just, you know, send out your surveys and ask your questions, because it really guides you in what are the outcomes that you expect of your intervention, what is the causal chain that you expect to reach those outcomes, and now going out and collecting your data and understanding that picture. So just thought I'd add that.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Then the next presenter was the radio man, Mr. Sianda Kobokana, and his topic was radio as a locus of making persons under apartheid and post-apartheid, looking at Jimmy and my uncle's cultures of radio listenership in South Africa, Eastern Cape. Is there any additional question for him that anyone from the audience would like to bring up? Okay, I hope Mr. Kobokana, you responded to the request for your email by one participant in the Q&A window. There was someone interested in linking up with you.
Yes, I did. Thank you so much. I did. And yeah, thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you so much. Then after that, we had a presentation by Ms. Nomonde Zama, and it was titled Tracing the Intellectual Landscape, a Bibliometric Analysis of Business Analytic and Supply Chain Management. Is there any additional question for her and her team? Okay, then the final one by Mr. Johannes Siku and Ms. Diana Ogega, Conceptualizing AI Tools as a Sustainable Approach to Higher Education in South Africa. Is there any question for these two? Okay, this marks the end of our presentations this afternoon. And just to say one thing, and this is for Diana and Johannes, there is a contribution from the audience there. It says, the legal regime to regulate AI usage can be a good contribution to your work? I hope you are listening. Diana?
Hello. Yes, we have seen the contribution. Jay has actually taken good note of it.
Okay.
So the discussion on the legal regime is important, but what is more important at an institutional level is policy, institutional policy. Because the AI tools that a particular institution will adopt may not be the same AI tools that a different institution will choose to adopt. So the legal framework is important because at the moment we do not have a national legal framework for the same, but at an institutional level, policies are more important, whether on which AI tools will be implemented and in which manner they will be implemented.
Okay. So while you are there, I see in your topic you are saying you're talking about higher education in South Africa. So I think if you talk about universities, I think there is like 26 of them. So in your work, are you going to look at all of them? Or maybe there will be a need for you to streamline even further, maybe to just look at UWC and to have that captured in your topic?
I think yes, because we are students, particularly to the University of the Western Cape, the university would then be our main framework to look at. But it does not negate or neglect us from looking at other universities or adopt, especially when we made mention to other jurisdictions. So it does not negate us from looking at how they implement AI
Yeah.
into their
So why I'm
policies.
saying this, I think I'm saying it because of what Diana has just said, that these tools, what one institution does might be different from another institution. So maybe you go to UCT, they have maybe more financial resources. Maybe they can invest in more expensive tools. And then they also have their own institutional culture, because policies for institutions depend on the culture of an institution. So I feel like it will be good to go by the line that Diana put forward if you are going to come up with a publication. Otherwise, if you try to open it up, then somebody will ask you to say, okay, you said higher education in South Africa. Did you go and do something at CPUT, or did you go to Stellenbosch? All these institutions have their different policies in place, and those policies will need to speak to whatever you are going to come up with when you are looking at policies for conceptualization of ICT tools, AI tools in that particular institution.
Yeah, it's also.
So I think you just need to focus on UWC, and then afterwards, if you have more time to do like a bigger study, maybe you can expand to maybe universities in the Cape, in Cape Town, in the Western Cape, so to say, because we only have 4. So it will be easier to do that kind of study. And because you will have already done something at UWC, then you expand it to those 4, and it will require it will require some money to spend because you need to go to those particular institutions to find out how their other policies work and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. Okay, so
Right.
colleagues,
We will definitely follow the through. Thank you so much.
thank you so much. But I also, on a personal note, I've been trying to reach out to the Faculty of Law in terms of AI. I tried, but things didn't work out. But I think you are the people that maybe I will need to talk to. So I will communicate with you privately. So, so colleagues, thank you very much for attending these presentations. And if there is other issues that you think you need to ask, or maybe to engage the presenters on possibilities of collaboration and the like, feel free to do so. That is the purpose of the Research Week. And thank you very much. This is the end of our presentations. Wishing you a good day.
Thank you.